G'day everyone, welcome to another episode of Mr. Code STEAM podcast where we talk about science and technology after school. Today we're going to unbox and build this, the Creality Ender 3 version 2 3D printer. Hello, my name is Gary. Today we're going to build this 3D printer from scratch. We're going to unbox it, lay out all the components, and then follow the instructions to build this 3D printer. We're also going to go through the routine of leveling off the bed to prepare for your very first print. So if you are new to 3D printing, or if you're an existing 3D printer who's using a Creality 3D printer for the first time, then this video is for you. Before you skip over to these timestamps, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and a subscribe. It would really help my channel and I thank you in advance. Let's get started. Alright, so let's start by unboxing this Ender 3 version 2 3D printer. Just got some scissors with me to carefully open the box. Okay, so it looks like we have all the pieces laid out from the box. Now I'm just going to check out the user manual for our first steps. Here we have our invitation. Be the next customer of Creality Cloud. That's interesting. Maybe we can check that out later. Alright, we're going to start by building our 3D printer, and then you can see that there's already some filament in here that they are providing, which is really nice, so we can do some testing. So, let's start by assembling our 3D printer. And the Z-axis switch limiter, here we are. Got to be really careful of this little catheter. It's a very sharp needle that they use to clear the nozzle. So be very, very careful with that. When you're reaching around in your bags, you don't want to poke yourself. To make sure that you screw halfway to make sure that it's actually fitting first. Just with your hands. You don't want to go straight in with the Allen key unless we really are certain. Just needs to be in far enough so that it doesn't fall out. So 3D printers, it's really important that they are very, very solid, because even a very small movement can cause like anomalies in your 3D print. So you just got to make sure that as you're assembling, even if you don't tighten everything up right at the start, you got to make sure you go through at the end to tighten everything up. And pay really close attention to the diagram where it shows you the short section and the long section. What it's referring to are the placements of the drill holes. So if you don't put it in exactly the right place, it's not going to work. So the Z-axis limit switch is for detecting when the gantry, the Z-axis that goes up and down this 3D printer, reaches the bottom of the 3D printer. So this little switch is going to touch onto the limiter when the gantry is all the way down the bottom. Now we're going to install this Z screw. This plastic sleeve that's over the screw is just to protect the grease, make sure it doesn't all dry out. And here is our Z motor. So what it does is, this is a big screw gear, so all it does basically is that it makes your gantry go up and down, your print nozzle go up and down. Got to make sure that this is nice and tight. So in order to install the X-axis, the rod, you gotta make sure that you're using the side with the two holes here so that we can connect it to this assembly here. These two round screws, they're going to cause you a lot of issues. You can't get your hands in them. So for this belt drive, we just have to make sure that the teeth are facing towards the sprocket. inside the end of this gantry. It needs to be facing the teeth. I mean, it's got to be facing the sprocket, otherwise it's not going to move it back and forth. Make sure it's no twisting in this belt, otherwise it's not going to work. Remember what I said about don't put in twists in your belt? Well, I'll put a twist in my belt. I almost did. Better. Right. Now what do we do? Now we put it on. So there you have it. We have now finished building the 3D printer, but it's not ready to print yet. We got to make sure that we set up our software and also level the bed so that it is ready to make its first creation. It's really satisfying. That's really satisfying. So now that the printer is homed, we're going to have to level the bed. So now that it's on the bottom left corner, just got to adjust this screw to make sure that if I put a piece of paper under it, it's going to give it a little bit of tension, but not too much. So just a page from the instructions is probably what I will need. So yeah, that's way too close to the... way too close. That's better. So it gives it a little bit of tension when I move the paper inside, but not too much. And then I use the click wheel to go to the other corner. Basically do the same thing. My main concern is this bottom right screw. That should be okay. So now that we are level, we're ready to make our very first print. So for the software, we are going to use Ultimaker's Cura. All you have to do is go to the Ultimaker website and then look for the latest version of Cura. Just download the version for your computer and then we will be able to get started. Make sure you hit that keep button. So once you've installed Cura, we're going to follow the Get Started wizard and agree to the disclaimer and then hit next. You can skip this part. We're not going to add a network printer, we're going to add our Ender 3. So you go down to a non-networked printer and you look for your Ender 3. And we look for Creality 3D. And then here we have Ender 3. Okay, even the version 2, we use the same profile as Ender 3. And name our printer name. Hit next. And here you'll have your settings for your 3D printer. So everything is looking pretty good to me right now. You check out your extruder, your material diameter 1.75. Yes, usually you're going to use 1.75 PLA plastic, which is this version of plastic that you get inside the box. Alright, so here we have our 3D version of the print bed. all we have to do is download our model, and then we're going to add it into this file so that we can start printing it. In order to add a model to this file, we're going to have to go find a model, and the model we're going to look for is called 3D Benchy. Benchy is a type of benchmarking model. It's very popular. It's like a little boat that you use to print, and you can use it to see if there are any errors or any adjustments you need to make in your 3D printer. So I will leave the link for downloading Benchy in the description below, and then we are going to import that file over into this software. So after you've downloaded Benchy, we're going to open it from here. So hit this top left button, this open symbol, and then just open 3D Benchy, the STL file, so this stereolithography file. Once you have downloaded it and opened it up inside Cura, you'll see it positioned right in the middle of the print bed. You can hold down the right mouse button and move your mouse to see Benchy in different angles. You can also use the mouse wheel to zoom in and out. And of course you can also hold the middle mouse down, so the mouse wheel, if you're using the mouse wheel, you can click it down and then you can pan up, down, left and right. Okay, so this looks like a good position for our first test. All we have to do now is slice the model. So when you built your 3D printer, you'll have noticed that there is this USB stick with a little micro SD card. So this micro SD card is going to be what we're using to transfer data between the computer and our 3D printer. So make sure that the SD card is inside our USB, and then we plug it into our computer. Once you've put the USB stick into your computer, come back to the Slicer software and look at the top right settings. Here we have the settings for our print. So here we have standard quality at 0.2 millimeters. So this is the standard kind of print detail. 0.2 millimeters is referring to the layer height. So the smaller the layer, the more detailed it's going to be. The bigger the layer, the less detailed it's going to be, but then it's also going to be faster. We got 20% here, which is the infill amount. Infill is how much plastic is filled out inside the model. So the more percentage it is filled in, the more dense your model is going to be. So 100% infill will basically mean your model is going to be a solid piece of plastic, whereas 20% infill like this will mean that in the inside it's mostly going to be air, and it's going to have this lattice crisscrossing through the inside of your model just to give it some rigidity. Over here we have a symbol for supports. Right now we have no supports for Benchy, which is okay because Benchy is not designed it's designed so that you don't need to print with any supports, and that should be all we need. Adhesion, I prefer adhesion to be turned on. So now we hit the slice button. The slice button is right behind me over here. So we hit the slice button, and then you'll see that it is now slicing in progress. After it's sliced, it will tell you how long it will take. So here it says that it's going to take about 2 hours to print, and it's going to take about 11 grams or almost 4 meters of filament. You can also hit the preview button in the top middle section of your model, and then you can see all the parts that your printer is going to print. So with the adhesion, this light blue part is going to be something called a brim, and that basically means that it's going to give your model more chance to stick to the bottom of your print bed, and that's going to be really important for successful prints. Once you're ready and you're happy, then you click Save to Removable Drive if you've plugged in your USB stick, and then we are going to be ready to transfer it over. So we click on Save to Removable Drive right here where the slice button was, and now after it's saved we click on Eject. Now it'll tell you that it's safe to eject your hardware. We unplug it, And now all we have to do is take out the micro SD card and then put it into the front of our printer to get it printing. Here's the filament that comes with our Ender 3 version 2. You use your spatula to cut the bag open. And very carefully look for the end of your filament, because you don't want to get it tangled up while it's printing. So look for the end of the filament and then keep a close eye on it when you are taking it apart. So here, right here is the end of my filament. Gotta make sure that it doesn't slip underneath any of the coils and accidentally get it all tangled up. So I'm just holding it as quickly as I can when I unpack my filament so that it doesn't get tangled up. Then we uncoil these little wires. Now very simply, we're going to put it onto the loop at the top of the 3D printer and have this side coming down the side. Alright, so coming down the far side of our 3D printer. And what we want to do is we want to feed it into the nozzle. Okay, I'll just move the 3D printer around so you can see. So I want to feed this into this little hole right behind the this little knob over here. You might find that you'll have to twist and turn the end of the filament so that it goes into the Bowden tube as expected. So once you've managed to feed the filament into the tube, you just pinch onto that lever and keep on pushing it all the way through until the filament has reached the end of the nozzle. Then you can reassemble anything you've taken apart, and then we're going to warm it up and get it ready for printing. So now what we're going to do is move the Z-axis up so that we can see if the filament is getting guided properly through the tube. So we use this click wheel, go into prepare, you scroll down to move Z, go and move the Z-axis up to about 30 centimeters. Now that it is a little bit higher, we can warm up our machine by going back and then go to back again, control, and then go into temperature and then set the nozzle temperature to about 220 degrees. Now this is for PLA filament. PLA filament you can print at around about 200-230 degrees. So we set it a little bit on the high side so that we can see if the plastic is melting and if it is feeding through smoothly. You can see on this left-hand side of this display, it shows you the current temperature and the target temperature of your extruder nozzle. So it's raising its temperature quite quickly. It is now at 82 degrees. And then once it hits around the 200 degree mark, you should see a little bit of plastic filament oozing through the nozzle. And once that's happening, then you'll know that you've completed your filament loading process and it is ready to print. What you're looking for when you are squeezing the filament through is to make sure that it is a smooth flow. You don't want it to be really bumpy. If it's bumpy, then it might be because that the temperature is not high enough, or it could be that there might be dust or something caught inside the tube or in the filament, and that's not good. So we'll have to clean it out. Make sure that it is a smooth flow so that we can do our first print really well. It's at 190 degrees now. Just having a quick look underneath, and we can't really see any filament coming through yet. But in a moment, I'm going to give that the filament feeder a little bit of a twist to extrude a little bit of the filament, and then hopefully we'll see a little bit of filament come through. Alright, we're at 216 degrees now, so having a look, there is a little bit of filament oozing through the nozzle. So I've twisted the extruder nozzle and I'm pretty happy with the flow. It's looking like the filament is coming through now, so I'm just going to clean off the end with the spatula. You can see that the filament is coming out and it's not really lumpy, it's going in quite smooth. So I'm going to get ready to do the print. So here is my micro SD card that had the Benchy model. I unplug it and then I plug it into the forward part of my printer. And then I go into the click wheel again, go back to the start and then go into print. And then here's my file, 3D Benchy. Click on that. So now it's going to heat up the bed of my 3D printer, make it so that it's nice and toasty so that it's better for your adhesion of your models. And then it's going to heat up my extruder nozzle again just before it prints it out. Seeing a lot of filament ooze through, just clean it off with a spatula. For your first print, and actually for as many of your prints as you can, you should really be there to watch the printer print. Even though sometimes your prints might take hours or even days, always make sure that somebody is able to keep an eye on your printer, because they are very hot objects. You wouldn't leave an oven on in your house overnight without looking at it, right? Same thing with the 3D printer. You want to put it somewhere that has a low fire safety hazard, maybe somewhere in a garage or a shed, somewhere with concrete or bricks. That way your printer, even if it does catch fire, which is very rare, you wouldn't want it to damage anything around your house. If you are having a 3D printer inside your house, then make sure you are keeping it in a corner, enclosed somewhere with a fire alarm and some fire safety blankets or fire extinguishers, just to be on the safe side. Always keep an eye on your 3D printer when it is printing, whenever possible. Alright, so it's starting to move back to home now, which means that it has heated itself up to its target temperatures, and it is going to get ready for our first print. If you set up your bed leveling up correctly, then this part should be reasonably straightforward. Sometimes you might find that your prints are set too high or too low, and if it's too low, that will make it so that your first layer won't print really well. It would get blocked a lot of the time. But if it's printing out too high, then your filament might dry before it adheres to the base. Already we are starting to see a problem with our print, and that would be because of my setup at the start. I've leveled it and it is too high. So if it's too high, this will happen where your your print does not adhere to the base properly, and you'll have this effect where it's turning into spaghetti. So as soon as you see that happen, there's no problems. You just stop your print by going to the click wheel, and then it is a matter of changing the height of our print nozzle so that our bed is slightly higher. So I'll do that now. Just get rid of all the filament that was extruded. Clean up the side there. And then we know that it is reasonably close to where we need to be. So you can just adjust these bed leveling knobs just a little bit so that it's a bit closer. So I'm just going to go looser, which is going to raise the bed slightly. And then we just try the print again. What some people like to do if they're constantly not getting good adhesion to the print bed is to have a glue stick around where you can put just a very small layer of glue onto the print bed just before the print starts, and that sometimes helps with your bed adhesion. Just having a look at this second attempt. Looks like that our adjustments have been successful, and now it is printing pretty well. All we have to do now is wait for this first print of Benchy to finish, and then hopefully we can start printing our other projects. Alright, so we encountered a problem. It was printing okay at the start, and then the bottom of the model detached from the base, and I'll show you what that looks like now. Here you can see that the model's no longer attached to the base, and it's turned into spaghetti. As soon as it detaches from the base, it's pretty much game over for this model. So you can have a look at this model now. It is all messed up, but that's okay. We're going to try this print again, but this time we are going to add a little bit of glue using a glue stick. So we're going to just put a tiny bit of glue on the bottom in the middle of the build plate, and hopefully it's going to make a successful print this time. Alright, you can see that this second attempt is much better than the first one after we have added that little bit of glue stick to the base, and you can see why the Ender 3 version 2 is such a popular printer. It's a really good quality print, and it's actually not that noisy compared with some of the other printers. You might have really loud motor noise, but for this printer you hear a bit of the fan because it's close to the microphone, but in general the motors are really quiet. What I really like about this printer as well is that it's got this glass base, which is really great for making a strong adhesion and making it so that it's easy to remove your model. And now you see that the model is complete. It is a really good quality model. There is a little bit of wisping in between the vertical pylons on the boat, and you can use Benchy to really calibrate your printer. You can see here there's a little bit of a line on just under the roof, which tells me that there might be something bumping in the way of that Z-axis. So it will mean that I'll have to check out that vertical screw and clean it a little bit just to reduce the change there. You can also see that the whole print doesn't require any supports. There's just the brim on the bottom to add that little bit of extra adhesion, but this is just a fine model to get started with. And after you have done this first print, then the possibilities are endless. What will you print for your first print? I am looking for a planter for my office, so I think that is going to be my next project, and I'll also test out some other filaments using this printer. That's it from me today. Thank you so much for watching me build this 3D printer, and I hope you enjoyed my prints. If you like these videos, then please make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. I'll see you again next time. Bye bye.